All right. Hello, Carson Cooper. So good to have you and see you today. How are you, man?
I'm doing amazing. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. I am just thrilled. Ever since we first met, I've always just really enjoyed your energy, and it's been so exciting to see how it's grown, our connection, our friendship, and now we work together. And then to be bringing you into this new project of my life, it's just exciting. I love to see all the live paths keep crossing and crossing in interesting ways.
Yes, all the way from our very first lunch together.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm just grateful to have you in my life and grateful to have you on this podcast today.
Absolutely, me too. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if you've heard a couple of the podcast episodes, so you know this first question. So I want to invite you to just get in touch with where you're at today in this moment of life. If you need to, close your eyes and take a breath, and then answer the question: if you were to describe who you are right now as the perfect drag avatar, what would that be?
So the picture of Carrie Underwood comes up.
Mark.
She's just like a fierce diva, and I've watched her from on American Idol, and she started off like meek, but then her voice was always strong, and then she grew into her voice. And I think that's, I feel like, what we get to do is like we have an inner voice and we grow into our voices. So, and the first time I actually dressed up in drag, I was Carrie Underwood. So that does it.
I love it. Let's bring her spirit in. That's a good one.
Right?
Yeah, I love that. And for me, I'm feeling some like Jaguar energy. I don't know what that print is behind you, but I love that like black and the vines, and I'm feeling that as well. This sort of like darker, mysterious energy, a little more low key, sort of in the shadows, moving through in the shadows. I feel like I've been a little less visible. I've been putting myself out there a little less, but in a good way, just taking some time to kind of move through those shadows. But also recognizing that there's light that still wants to come through. So in a drag avatar, it is Jaguar. And if I were to, put it on stage, she'd have like dark black hair that's like very straight, and she'd be in something like very silky and gorgeous with like very tall stiletto heels. Yeah, that's the energy I'm bringing through today.
My gosh, that's amazing. Yeah, I love like the different aspects of Carrie Underwood, like the cute preppy girl, and then she's
Mm.
like banging shit up with a car, and like don't you know? I mean, I feel like that's all the aspects of it. We get to embrace all of our emotions. So I love that, and so that part of like embracing our darkness in order to learn our light.
Mm.
So when you said Jaguar, that's what came up for me. As I feel like we get to embrace our dark as we grow and embrace our light.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like one of the aspects of queerness to me is embracing all that is, like really looking at all the idiosyncrasies and quirks and the interesting things about us and bringing them to the light and expressing all of them. And so I see that in spirituality too, that we have this invitation when we connect with spirit to embrace all of who we are and express all of who we are. And yeah, I love that Carrie can also be a model for that.
Right.
Perfect. So, as I mentioned at the top of this call, that we work together now, and I love working with Genius Unlocked, Carson's company. I support the ICF coaches, the up and coming coaches, and mentor them. And I love Genius Unlocked. You've done such an amazing job creating that company. And I'm just curious to hear, well, first, share a little bit about what that company is, just to give some context.
Yeah. So I believe that every single person has a genius inside of them, and they have a unique path in order to self-express. And throughout life, we put up walls and boundaries and trauma, PTSD, addiction, negative situations, and it blocks our inner genius. And our inner genius isn't about what we know or what we do. It's about who we are, and it's about our self-expression. And I believe in order to connect to our true genius, we have to release the most vulnerable part of ourselves. And queer people know that there's lots of vulnerable parts of ourselves. And so through my journey of, as a queer man and releasing all of that, I've really embraced my brilliance intellectually, but being able to attract people energetically, and connecting with people. So I really want people to unlock their genius,
Mm,
and that understanding the mind, the body, understanding spirituality and what that means for them.
mm,
And then we get to connect with the negative thoughts, emotions, release those, and then release PTSD, trauma, and addiction in order to. So that's why I started Genius Unlock Coaching Institute, to help others heal themselves, but then also
mm.
heal and take the coaching principles and heal others.
Yeah, I mean, it's a movement, it's creating a movement, not only supporting people in transforming themselves, but giving people the tools and skills that they need to transform others. And in so doing, it's, this beautiful domino effect. It's all these ripples of impact that you're making through this company. So it's really inspiring. And I'm just curious, when you think about what you have created, what do you think are the moments, the key moments in your life that drove you and guided you into this purpose?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest things actually was my grandma, um, and she's been absolutely incredible in opening me up spiritually, mentally, my self-expression, and she's been a lot of source of my trauma.
Okay.
Funny enough, yet we would go horseback riding, backpacking, hiking in the woods, and we would be out in the middle of nowhere, and we would just be talking about life, talking about God and source, talking about self-expression. She would wear these ridiculous like parachute pants, and I'm like, why are you wearing those? And she's like, Carson, just be yourself. And so from a young age, I was in third grade, I actually negotiated with the principal to be the youngest associated student body in person. And then I was a leader in high school and college. And so leadership has always been a part of what I was doing, yet I never believed in myself. I never believed that I could have lots of money or I could be a leader that somebody would listen to. So I came at it from a place of lacking confidence. And then it was like, when I got my master's in order to prove that I was worthy, smart enough, old enough, that people would listen to me. And I didn't feel any smarter, worthy, and old enough after my master's. And so it was like, there's no big, I was always waiting for the big moment that I was going to accept myself as a gay person, that the world was going to accept me, that I was going to be smart enough, that I was going to feel confident enough to have my own business. And it never came. No outside thing made me feel good enough inside. And so that's when I started being like, I need to do the inner work inside of me. And that's when I really connected with my own definition of spirituality instead of what other people told me what spirituality was. So I got baptized. I went to church for a long time. I went to lots of different churches. It wasn't until I actually hiked Mount Kilimanjaro.
Wow.
And I declared it at a personal development event. I'm going to hike Mount Kilimanjaro. And they're like, oh, when are you going to do it? I said, oh, 5 to 10 years. And they're like, wait, what? When do you really want to do it? And I'm like, a year from now. And I was in a 9 to 5 job, not making any money, $70,000 in debt, no more vacation time. And I started my business that year. I paid off all of my debt. I paid for the trip in cash. And on the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Hiking up to 19,000 feet, 11 o'clock at night, negative 30 degrees. I actually passed out because I was so tired and cold. And right before I passed out, I asked like if Jack, my grandpa that had died, and Denise, my aunt, like if you're real, if angels are real, if God's real, if there's something spiritual on this earth that can help me, I need your help right now. And I woke up and there was like this warm blanket after like 6 hours of not feeling warm. It was like this warm blanket. And I was able to finish hiking.
Not physically, there was not an actual blanket on you. You just
No, I
experienced a
I
blanket.
experienced, so when I woke up from fainting, I experienced this warm blanket and I had this energy And we actually only had 45 minutes left, and I got there and saw 19,341 feet. Um, and that's when I knew that I wanted to dive more into spirituality, less religion, and more of what does spirituality mean for me.
Beautiful. What's your grandma's name?
Marge.
Marge. Is she still with
Yeah.
us?
Yeah, she is. She actually just turned 90 this year.
Wow, beautiful. Happy birthday, Marge. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So that's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. And so I'm curious, and I think this is true for many of us, that we are fed religion and told that that's spirituality, and for many of us it doesn't resonate, and then we decide we don't want to keep eating this slop. We're like, we don't want to keep eating this, because it doesn't feel nourishing, it
Yeah.
doesn't feel juicy and delicious, right? And so as you have started rejecting that old idea of spirituality in the form of traditional religion and started to define your own, how do you define it? What are some of the aspects of spirituality for you?
Yeah. So it first really started with having my own connection to God. So nature was that true connection for me, walking in nature, and being able to feel peace, feel calmness, feel centered, feel grounded. What is the difference of like just having my feet on the ground, swimming naked in water, like just actually being in my body in nature. So I think that was the first step for me. And what I would want other people to have and know is like, where can you connect to your body and connect to nature outside of our normal environment? So that was the first part, that it was like God, source, whatever your definition is all around you. And it starts, I think, with connecting to your body and feeling something inside of your body, because there's so many negative thoughts and emotions that block us from feeling the unconditional love of source. So yeah, so that's the first part. And then the second part is intentionally, I learned to intentionally connect with the earth and in connection to source. So it's like, we have these energy centers in our body that are blocked because of negative emotion, PTSD, addiction, and trauma. And so it was just a short grounding and connecting and being like, oh, what does it feel like to be rooted like trees into the ground? What does it feel like to, just like the Amazon trees, to just extend your vine, your light up and connect to source? Like if we can imagine connecting to that, then it starts becoming a reality. And then I guess the last step for me was understanding that we're unlimited power source. We are actually spiritual beings in a physical reality. And so when we came down on this earth, I feel like it pushed us into this physical reality, but we are source energy. So we actually can manipulate our energy. We can get learnings. We can harness the energy from source. So I feel like it's been a progression for me.
Yeah.
That's how I would explain my personal progression.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's so interesting, and I relate to it. It resonates for me as well. This idea that the first access point to connecting with spirit is through our body and the earth. And it's funny because it feels contradictory, right? Because we think about spirit being up there and like, this ethereal space, usually above, right? We think of like source light energy coming from above. And yet it makes sense to me to get grounded in our body and in the earth and that experience in order to create that access to the light from above, to the light source, and to recognize that we are part of it, that we are connected to it. And that it's not about connecting, if we think about our body from our high chakra, from like our brain to like, oh yeah, God up here, it's actually no, like get rooted in our body and the body of the earth in order to kind of create that channel to connect with spirit.
Absolutely. I feel like we separate it in order, binary, right? Male, female. Our brain works, actually, it wants to find the differences in order to feel safe and comfortable. And so we like linear things, we like certainty. And so to say that heaven is here and earth is here, it works with our lizard brain.
Yep.
But I believe that it's all intertwined and connected. There is no space separation of it. It's like I actually believe that the spiritual world and the physical world are mirrors of each other.
Love that. Yeah. I'm curious, as you mentioned this initial connection to the body, I've noticed your tattoo art kind of evolving. It seems like you almost have a full sleeve now. And I've wanted to ask you this many times and it's never been the right context. And so I'm just curious if you could give us a little bit of the story of some of the symbolism, some of the work that is in your artwork, and maybe, how you chose to kind of take on the journey of a sleeve. I have some really big pieces too that are really meaningful to me. So I know how personal that relationship with tattoo art can be.
I'm so glad that you saw that and asked, because I know that was not gonna come. We didn't plan on this coming up, but this is my complete spiritual journey.
Wow.
And so I had gotten a lion on my side, and so the face is black and white, and then it's half like feathers and leaves, and then half like ground and connecting. Anyways, so it's all the rainbow colors and different stuff around, and then a masculine face. And so it's just an intersectionality of all aspects of embracing my male energy, my female energy, how that all intertwines. And I'm one person, being the strength of a lion, but the strength of showing who I am. And I actually then never thought I would have a sleeve. I'm like, oh, I can hide this one, even though it's my whole side. And then I was like, no, I think guys with sleeves are freaking sexy.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be the sexy guy.
Oh, yeah.
I don't need to just wait to be with a sexy guy. And so I started looking, and spirituality is really important to me. The lion tattoo is more about grounding and on this earth. And so I'm really into meditation. And so the first tattoo on my forearm is a guy meditating with his inner child inside of them. And I think part of the spiritual development is really understanding what is our inner child holding, the hurt and the pain. That's right. The hurt and the pain that we have as a child, and how did that develop our definition of love, our definition of acceptance, our definition of ourselves. So I've done a lot of inner child work, and then we also deserve to have play and have fun and express our inner child. So heal our inner child, but also express. So then on the inside of my bicep, I have the inner child turning into a phoenix.
Work.
And I believe that the amount of darkness that we have in our life is directly equal to the amount of light that we are. And so I know that can be really hard for some people to hear, because some people are in very dark places. Yet, what if you just believed for a moment that the amount of darkness that you're going through is actually equal to the amount of light, and you can actually learn and grow, and embracing the darkness actually embraces your light. So that's what the inner child and the phoenix represents, as we obviously we grow from their ashes. And then on the outside of my forearm or my bicep is the guy meditating. Now he is then meditating, he's becoming his higher self. So my definition of higher self is becoming how God sees you, how source sees you, how the universe sees you, again, whatever your definition is. And so if you could become that person and take steps throughout your life to become more and more, again, there's no big moment. Who are you as your higher self? How does God see you? So the development of that. And then the last piece is the tree of life. So really understanding, like, how do the planets, how do the stars, how do what are the energies that do affect us? And so I used to not believe in astrology. I used to not believe in any of those things. Yet, regardless if it's real or not, what do we think about it? What can we learn from it? What energetically, if energy was real and it was there to empower us, how can we be empowered by it? So it's this idea of just connecting with the energy around us. So then the different pieces that bring it together is one, like the darkness and the light. So actually the white space actually makes the picture, but you can't have the white space to be a picture unless the darkness is there. So that's saying we can't have our lightness and embrace our genius without the darkness being there. We would be nothing without the darkness. So, and then the last one is it's actually one of the oldest Japanese sacred geometry patterns, and it's the seed of life. And it's just embracing love and peace, and just a really beautiful flower.
Work. That's
So,
amazing. I'm so glad I asked now in this moment. It's perfect. Is it complete then? It looks and feels complete.
yes, it's totally complete. All the
Yes.
way. Yeah, so it's all done now, shaded and everything.
Gorgeous.
So yeah.
Gorgeous. I actually forgot that you had that lion, and I recently got lionesses on my chest.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool.
So this is just the beginning of the process. It'll be in all color, but it's giraffe in the middle, and then these lionesses sort of as emblems of protective energy.
Yeah.
And the giraffe has the largest heart in the animal kingdom, so it's about walking with an open heart. And then the lions are there to create the boundaries, to create the spaciousness, the safety, the protection for giraffe to lead in that way.
That is so incredible.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was a wild experience. I'll have my tattoo artist on this show eventually, but I had a different vision. I was looking to get a left arm piece. And then this came to him in meditation. I was like, I guess I'm getting a giant giraffe on my chest. Here we go.
Yeah.
um,
I
yeah.
think that's so amazing. So one of my first tattoos was actually a heart with an infinity symbol in it. And it represents to me that love is really the only infinite thing out there. And I really think that spirituality has helped me connect with the love that I am, versus the love that was programmed in me. So that's so amazing that the giraffe is the biggest heart. And then that's so cool.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited. There's going to be some dolphins that are that playful energy too. And then this arm will get done eventually. But
Yeah.
I wanted to circle back to this concept of the higher self. I love how you defined it as, I believe you said how source sees us, how God sees us. And I'm curious, in what ways, if any, can you imagine folks working with their highest self?
Yeah. Beautiful. So I believe that first we want to work with our intuition. So our intuition, I believe, is the connection between us and source, us and our higher self. And so I believe that we have to understand what mentally and emotionally is blocking us from being the essence of who we are. And so intuition, I believe, is the translator between the conscious and unconscious mind. And so first, really just understanding when you get stuck, or when you feel hate, or when you feel anger, or when you feel any emotion that's not serving you, what triggered that? I don't belong. Nobody likes me. What triggered that? And so instead of just reacting from that place, it's what triggered that, and what need am I not getting? And really I believe our intuition can bubble up learnings for us. And so it's really that you build the connection to your intuition. And then once you start believing and trusting in yourself, then you can intentionally connect with your higher self and say, who is this higher being that I'm meant to evolve to in this lifetime? And so I feel like the intuition is really connecting to, again, what is your heart saying? What is your things that you need to clear out from your darkness? And then I feel like your higher self is leading you to your full light.
I love that. And what's resonating for me is this connection between intuition and higher self. And I see it as either the intuition is sort of the pathway to the highest self. And another way to possibly think about it is the intuition is the voice of the highest self. That when we're connecting with the highest self, we're able to hear that voice of intuition coming through.
Yeah, so source energy or higher self talks in very abstract language. So you're given signs from your higher self. It could be in colors and pictures, however your modality of receiving information is. And it's very broad. And so I feel like our intuition, it's like how on the in this physical plane can it work in specifics. So
Mhm.
what does these big pictures mean, or these coincidences or synchronicities that your higher self is showing you? Exactly how can your intuition then translate that to you, then to what does it look like to take that physical tangible action in this realm?
Yeah, to actually work with these messages, work with this wisdom, and channel it into practical use. Yeah, I love that. And kind of brings me to this curiosity I have around the integration of the conscious mind, the unconscious mind, and the spiritual mind, as we're bringing sort of these things together to serve us in moving forward in a real way in this real life. Like, what are some of your thoughts on that process of integration?
Yeah, absolutely. So understanding that our conscious mind is um, it your conscious mind is it's works in the specific, it's planning, it's details, it's specifics, and then your unconscious mind is really it's all of the power in us is in our unconscious mind, and it's very broad, and it runs the body, it stores our memories. And so when we can understand that our conscious mind can actually have power or control over our unconscious mind,
Mhm.
and when you understand and can be the owner of your own conscious mind, is that's when we become actually the most powerful. Yet, because of trapped negative thoughts and emotions in the unconscious mind, because of trauma or different things like that, we react out of not being intentional. And so, what I think we deserve to do is to understand what are our automatics
Mhm.
that we are doing that aren't serving us. And so, for example, with my grandma, I told you that she's been the source of all. She loved my first job that I did, which was conflict resolution. And so I traveled the United States and the world teaching conflict resolution, doing these mediations for Kaiser, San Diego County government, all these different things. And so
Mhm.
she'd always ask me questions about it. And then when I told her that I was going into coaching, she said that I was too young. I didn't have enough wisdom. I was stealing money from people, and God is the only person that can give people wisdom. You can't do it.
Wow.
And so it was direct conflict with me not feeling smart enough, me not feeling respected, but then also my spirituality. Like I felt God, I felt the universe inside of me through everything that she's taught me. But now, because of my age, I can't give the wisdom of God to people.
Mm.
And so that left me hurt, broken, not accepted, rejected, and it brought up all the things from coming out as a gay male, and my teachers making fun of me, and people that I thought were going to protect me didn't. My uncle saying that all gays should die,
Mm.
and so because of all of that was suppressed inside of me, I would always say like, oh, I grew up fine. My problems weren't like other people's. Like I grew up in a middle class, all of that stuff. And I tried to hide the pain that was going on. And then I became a workaholic. I ran too much. I started partying and drinking and doing drugs. And so I kind of lived this double life of working 80, 90, 100 hours weeks, but then also partying and doing drugs and having sex to numb. And so consciously, I didn't know why I was doing that. I was like, oh, I'm just trying to have fun, get to know myself. Well, I was trying to know myself through work, and I was trying to get to know myself through partying, all those different things. But I wasn't actually really listening to myself.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't until I was able to release the not feeling like I loved myself, not feeling like I accepted myself. And I feel like I had to understand I can't expect somebody else to love and accept me if I don't love and accept myself. I was wanting to make my parents, make my grandma, you have to love and accept me. But I really was doing it so that I could accept myself. And so anyways, so in order to integrate the conscious and unconscious mind, it's about being able to move through and sit with the unconscious emotions that we've pushed away our entire life. So
Yeah.
then the unconscious negative thoughts and emotions bubble up into the conscious mind, and then you have choice. So the conscious mind is about having choice and not if I feel like I was always in like binary thinking, like this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad. And when we're in that binary thinking is when we don't have choice, we don't have creativity. Um, and we don't have options. So when I then learned to hear and listen to my emotions, hear and listen to when my grandma actually on my last birthday, I had brought a man of color over, and she asked him, "Did you have money growing up?"
Wow.
And it's been probably 4 or 5 years since I brought somebody home, but never has she ever said that. And I was just like, at first I was just like raging and was just like, I wanted to leave and like all of these different things. He was incredible and handled it amazing. And again, I was just like, what was going on inside of me that had that initial action of rage. But then I ended up just going up the next weekend and saying, Grandma, I've loved everything that we've went through together. I appreciate you so much for teaching me and learning me. And you actually coming out, you helped me. Dad wanted to send me away to conversion camp. You actually told him that it's not a choice and all of that stuff. I just want to let you know that when you said that, it really hurt me and hurt my heart, because I feel like that's not where we come from as a family.
Yeah.
And she started crying, and she said, I love you, and I've enjoyed all of our time together, and I would never want to hurt you.
Wow. Powerful.
And so it was just, what were our so consciously, again, we both have values around family. We both have values around love. And we've both have been hurt. And so I actually said, I feel like I've hurt you by not being around as much as I used to. And it was probably shocking that I just randomly show up after a year and a half of not showing up with this guy, and you just want me to be loved and safe. And so I was like, what was her needs?
Yeah.
What were my needs? And so instead of it's you versus me, you hurt me, you created this, it was like, okay, what is our common ground? What is our needs? And so that's what it's like. Once I released all of that from my unconscious mind, I didn't expect her to be a certain way. I didn't expect myself to be a certain way. I had choice and options. I for a couple, I didn't show up for a couple months, and then I was angry. Then I allowed myself to feel all the expressions of emotions. And so when we integrate our conscious and our conscious mind, I feel like we have choice back. Then that's when we can truly start hearing messages from source. Is when we're not kind of caught up in this suppressed negative thoughts and emotions. We can actually understand, well, who are we through source's eyes? And that's our higher self. And that's really starting. I believe that connection to source isn't a feeling. And I think people mistake that a lot. Is like, oh, I feel connected to God, or I feel connected to source. I just feel so good. Well, it's a knowing. And that's what I want people to realize, is that I want you to feel love and feel passion, feel excitement, feel joy, feel connected. But when you're connected to your higher self, it's a knowing of who you are. It's a knowing of what source has for you. And so I feel like first you have to release the negative thoughts and emotions, embrace the positive thoughts and emotions. And then it has to become, when you, through meditation, through breath work, through whatever way you want to connect spiritually, then you start just having a knowing. And that's when you integrate the conscious, unconscious, and higher self.
Awesome. I love all of that. Yeah. And what I'm present to are a few things. And one is, I love in the story how you were working really hard and partying really hard, and that you had created this false narrative that that's how you're going to learn about yourself, right? And the truth is that that's exactly how you're not going to learn about yourself, right? That by doing all this, by doing so much, you're avoiding the true self, right? And you're not creating the spaciousness the stillness or the quiet to actually be able to hear and to be able to sit and listen. And I love that the other piece is curiosity. Like, so we can find stillness and we can find quiet and we can sit with curiosity. And when we give ourselves that spaciousness, some of these unconscious thoughts, beliefs, and negative emotions have the room to come up. And some courage on top of that, right? To have that lion energy that we know we've got this, we can handle it, right? And then to allow that stuff to come up, and then to find different methods to process it. And so and then once we've processed it, to create that clearer channel, and then use similar, maybe the same or new processes to really connect with source and allow that energy to move through. And so with that in mind, I'm just curious about some of the things that you've found most effective for either clearing that negative energy and the unconscious level. And then on the second step, channeling and bringing in source energy. And actually, before you jump into that, does that all resonate? How I kind of just broke that down? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest things that you said is that curiosity, because whether we're depressed, we're angry, it shuts down that curiosity. It can be really hard to be curious when you're in that state. And so when you can understand that all feelings and all thoughts came from somewhere, that it's not just it's not just the situation in front of you, that it's been a series of events in your life that have built up a certain emotion or thought. It's never one person or never one thing. And if we believe that it's just that one person or just that one thing, then we stop being curious, because then we blame and shame outside, or we blame and shame internally and make it all our fault. And in reality, it's probably not just one thing. And so being curious, that's what stuck out for me. And like trying new things. Like I remember my family used to be super racist, N-word this, terrorist that, different stuff like that. And I stood up at a family gathering and I screamed at everybody. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try anger, because being quiet didn't work. It made me hate myself. So then I tried screaming in anger. Well, that didn't work, because then they all got mad and pissed off and started yelling and screaming also. So then that was one Thanksgiving. So the following Thanksgiving, I was like, what do I want to do? Do I just not go? So this time I brought those like question cards, so you get to know each other. It was like a game, and I put them all along the table, and I just said, hey, I'd love everybody to answer these cards. Everybody pick it and we can answer it. So I knew that I can't get them to stop saying those things, because it's 23 against 1. But what if I start changing the conversation and getting them to know themselves? And then through over the next 5 years, my cousins would never hug me and never talk to me, never really say more than hi. After about 5 years of just being myself and showing an interest in their lives and not expecting anything in return, they started hugging me. They started asking me about my work. And then they started talking about my sexuality and everything. So it was a slow burn. But it's when you get curious and know that there's other options and you release expectations. So back to your question.
Yeah, before you hit that next question, I just want to say one of the things I often talk to clients about when they're dealing with someone else who they're finding challenging is curiosity and compassion, right? To bring curiosity to what that behavior might be, and then to bring compassion. And so what's coming up for me is that same alchemy of curiosity and compassion can be brought to ourselves when we're struggling, when we're failing that challenge. We bring curiosity. Why am I experiencing that anger? And compassion, put a dash of compassion there too, to have that self-compassion to move through that. So sorry, go on. So yeah, I'd love to hear your other thoughts.
I love that, because I had a coach that told me, like, how long did it really for you to just realize you're gay and then accept that you're gay? I'm like, probably 5 or 6, 7 years. And so she's like, your parents and grandma are a completely different generation. Don't you think it's going to take as long or maybe even twice as long?
Yeah.
And that gave me the curiosity and the compassion of where are they coming from? And
Yeah.
then like, if I can't accept myself, why would I expect them to accept me? They're not going through my experience. And I actually worked with a father and or a couple with a son, and they said, we don't like it, we don't agree with it, but we love him, and we want him to be safe. And they were all, when we come out as queer people, we are actually asking people to confront their own identities.
Hmm.
And it's like us being ourselves makes them question their own identity. And so in this coaching relationship, he had heart problems, the mom had cancer, and they were not able to ride motorcycles and do these different things that they wanted to do. And they actually told me, they're like, we actually go to nude resorts. None of our friends know. We're not allowed to say anything. And they were like, that's a part of us, that you're the only other person besides me and my wife that know that. And we're scared to death to have that piece of our identity show. And they were assholes to their kid.
Wow.
And it was like, because the kid wanted to be out there and put the identity out there, and that was their biggest problem. And they didn't feel like they had friends that accepted them and the different things like that. So you never know what people are going through and why they're angry or not accepting you or not loving you. Does not make the abuse okay. But so I just, curiosity and compassion, if the world had more of that, it would be amazing.
Yes, and I know we are jumping around a bit, but
Yes.
I just really appreciate that acknowledgement that as queer people, just in our being with our authenticity, that is counter normative, that it's confrontational.
Yeah.
And that's perhaps part of our purpose right now on the planet, is to confront by embracing the authenticity of who we are.
So that's why I actually would love your show and what this is talking about, because if God and spirituality isn't true and it's this world and there's no purpose, then yes, being gay, there's no purpose to being gay, and we aren't the norm, and we're horrible, right? Yet if we bring this spiritual perspective into it, that in Native Americans, a lot of them were the healers. And what if being gay and just living our life was supposed to evolve the world, was supposed to bring and expand consciousness just by our being?
Mm-hmm.
And it, again, whether it's true or not, who cares? But what if that can save a queer child's life, believing that my beingness is spiritual evolution on this earth, which I believe.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, I believe all my identities. I believe me as a person is here to help expand spiritually, and definitely being gay has been a huge purpose. So I worked with this other woman, and she's in her 50s, and she's a white woman, and she has had no difficulties, quote unquote, in her life. Her parents are great. Her husband's great. Her kids are great, but she doesn't feel like she is being her full self.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's trying to be her full self, and it's making conflict with her husband, making conflict with her parents. And I said, I don't know if this is appropriate, but I want to say something. She's like, yeah, go ahead and say it. I thank God every day that I'm gay, because I had to figure out who I was at a young age.
Yeah.
And now you're 50 and you've just been going by the book, and you haven't had a reason to find yourself.
Yeah.
So we're thrusted into a reason to find ourselves. And now she's doing it and upsetting the apple cart.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, with this spiritual perspective, can we be grateful for the difficulty and the darkness that then propels us to find our light?
Yes. Just want to breathe that one in. Yeah, and I totally agree that we as queer people are invited into this internal work at a very young age. And then the second piece to that internal work is we're invited into the courage, or to embracing the courage needed to express that truth, right? And so we are, yeah, thrust, I think, is a really good word, that we are thrust into being beacons of claiming our identity, claiming our truth.
Yeah.
And I agree that queer folks are here to serve in that way, and that all folks are on a journey of discovering that truth and then expressing that identity fully and authentically, and that's how they also get to be spiritual beings.
Yeah.
We just gonna get more thrust into it,
Yes.
it's more like confrontational and obvious. Yeah. Hmm. Beautiful. So as we kind of wrap up, I'm curious if you want to share anything else about navigating being a queer person and a spiritual person, and how you've held both of those truths.
Yeah. I believe that actually spirituality is a lot like embracing our sex life. So we as queer people, we're trying to understand our sexual identity. We're trying to understand that. And so it's so vulnerable to get to know us, but we have to practice, we have to play, we have to self-masturbate, we have to go out and have different partners, we have to explore what is safe, what isn't safe. And we're given, like, we have the people that are like just monogamy, and then you have people that are like just polyamory. And there's so much choice out there, yet we have to really play and practice all of that stuff sexually. And we have to push our boundaries a little bit. We have to listen to other people, but it really comes down to what's congruent and aligned with ourselves.
Yeah.
What do we think is good? What feels good? And then what actions that we take from our thoughts and emotions, what actions are we taking that then allow us to have a safe, joyous, connected sexual experience?
Yes.
So I feel like that's the same way with spirituality.
Yeah. So
So
good.
yeah, it's like there's no what. I love Reiki energy. I love Hawaiian Huna energy. Those are the ways that I connect with God. I say God, but that's just a word that I connect with. I don't mind if people say source or universe or universal consciousness. So there's so many different labels, just like have been put on sex, that we've navigated as queer people. So let's do that in spirituality as well. There's different names, there's different ways. So I choose to ground and connect through meditation. But I started out running. That's how, and then hiking. And then I was like, okay, well, let me sit on a rock. And is it helping? What do I do? Do I just imagine my vines going into the ground? But it's coming out of my tailbone. It's coming out of my butt, actually. Just like have fun and play with it, and just see. So grounding, connecting, meditation, I think breath work is absolutely amazing. Different energy works, different yoga, tantra, different things like that. Yet again, asking yourself, what beliefs do you have? What do you believe? Why do you believe that? And do you want to still believe that?
Yes.
You have a choice. And then the feelings, what feels good? And if it doesn't feel good, why?
Yes.
And then once you know that, what do you truly need that you're not getting? And go get it for yourself. Stop expecting other people to do it for you. And then take the inspired action. And I thought I had to wear super masculine clothes. Then I'm like, I have to wear super feminine clothes. Then it's like, I have to be a bottom. I have to be a top. And then as a queer person, I'm putting myself in my own boxes. So we do that. And then it's like, oh, I have to just do Reiki. I have to just be Christian. It's like, no, let's have it be a playground. And then whatever you settle on is amazing for you. And you don't want people to push your stuff on you, then don't push it on them, and practice that. practice having more confidence and trust and belief and faith in your spirituality, just like you do in your sex and identity. Um, and then if you do have fear around it, explore where that fear is coming from. And then again, take inspired action step to learn more and grow more.
So good. And I also want to thank you for answering the question of some of the ways that you have experienced connection and connecting to source. Because that question I asked a long time ago, it was still hanging out there for me. I'm like, okay, good. We nailed that one. And I just love this parallel of exploring our sexuality to exploring our spirituality. And similarly, it's that we don't want to just accept that we are, Methodist, and we accept all the beliefs that go around it, in the same way that we don't have to accept that we are monogamous and that we are this prescribed idea of sexuality. We get to create our own experience of sexuality. We get to create our own experience of spirituality. And the other parallel I wanted to bring up is that it also can evolve, in the same way that there might be a season where we just want to be monogamous. We really just want to be with that one partner and really ground into it. And then, a couple years down the line, we want to open it up, or we want to experiment with polyamory, or we want to do something different in our sexuality. Similarly, with our spiritual journeys, we might have moments where we're just focused on meditation, or we might be looking at, a plant-based diet and sort of like finding these ways that we're using our channel to connect. And then we start looking at other opportunities, maybe more mental inspirations, or things, these concepts that we might identify with that are also drawing us into that deeper connection with spirit. And so to also embrace the evolution of both our sexuality and our spirituality, that it can be always changing, that we're always on this journey of discovering. And I love the invitation to discover it through play. I love that. Yeah, so good. So good. As we wrap up, anything else you'd like to share? Any other last words you want to leave listeners with?
So one of the first words we talked about was choice, and the curiosity, and then the choice in that. And I'd really just like to leave people with being committed to, if you can be committed to your identity, be committed to what makes you feel amazing, and not what you think you have to do, yet what spiritually. Pick one thing that you can commit to, whether it's affirmation cards that I have in the background, whether it's meditation, whether it's breath work, whether it is tantra. It's like, commit to something and just know that you're committing to something, and it feels good to be committed to something. Then how can you consistently show up for yourself? So it's like we show up all the time for other people, but spiritually, once you commit to something, how can you then consistently show up for you? And again, we do it with our sexual orientation. So what if we did it spiritually, and you were able to say, okay, what if spirituality did exist for me? Then be congruent and just live in congruency. Notice how your thoughts match your emotions, which match your actions. And is my thoughts matching my emotions, matching my actions? If they're not, then recommit, be consistent, and step into like the congruent you. And I do think that, to me, is what spirituality is all about, is understanding the essence of who I am versus what I was told to be. Yes. And so when we can harness that spiritual and our sexual energy, honestly, then we can step into our creative genius selves.
Hell yeah. When we do that, we change the world.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carson. This was really fun and inspiring, and I'm just super grateful that you took the time to hang out and have this conversation.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.